Jake's running.
Hi.
Hey, babe.
Hey.
All right, guys, a little update. Some of the stuff's doing really good. Some of it's struggling. It's been cool, but now it's really warming up. Supposed to have warm nights from here on. I've looked at the forecast. We're not supposed to get that back down into the low 40s and 30s and things. I think that's what was hurting a lot of this stuff. I pulled out some of these early squash plants. I left one. You see how puny it looks? I pulled out a lot of the rest of them because the cold had just set them back so much. I didn't think I'd be able to recover them. I planted some new squash plants over on the other side. I'll show you, and they're looking a lot better. Put some out from seed. Matter of fact, some of these right here. That puny looking thing right here in the middle, that's actually gonna be a beautiful kale plant. I just bought those. They sat out here overnight and got a little dry, and I'm fixing to put some water to them. But you see all this powdery, gray looking stuff I've put out around the base of all the stuff. That's some blood and bone meal that I picked up. A little fertilizer I'm trying to put in everything and give it a little boost. Now that it's warming up and everything's wanting to start growing like it's supposed to, I'm get a little fertilizer to it. Hopefully it'll give it a little jump start. The tomato plants actually are looking really good. Those two I just planted about, I don't know, a week and a half ago. I just bought this one yesterday, put it in. That one I just put in a few days ago. It's already doubled in size. That thing's really good. But everything's looking good. Like I said, there was a few things that I planted too early. That was my fault. I was trying to get a jump start on it. And sometimes you have to take into account that it's too early for certain things, you know. Just because you can get the plants doesn't mean it's time to plant it. And hopefully, maybe next year I'll have a little greenhouse set up so I can get some of those plants early and get them established good in a greenhouse and then move forward. As you can see, I put a lot of fertilizer here. I'm fixing to water all this in, use my new water tank, my rain water tank. Got the hose here, fixing to run it out here and water all this stuff in. But here's my new squash and zucchini plants, and they're looking much better. And I know I've got them pretty tight here. Trying this out, trying to see how I can maximize my space, just how many plants I can plant and how well they'll do. I'm going to continue to fertilize these very well with the natural organic, you know, blood and bone fertilizer and things of that nature. No synthetic fertilizers, but something that'll try to keep them producing and just see how long they'll produce. I've got some that are set out that are further apart, more traditional, and I'll just kind of take an inventory of the difference of the two and see if I can keep these producing even though I bunched them together like this. I'm curious to see if I fertilize them well, if I can get as much or more produce out of a small spot than if I spaced them out, you know, because really these are kind of double spaced. You would want at least say this one and that one, take this one out, you would want at least that much space normally. But I'm trying to do a little bit tighter and just see what I can come up with. You can see my beans and peas are really popping out, starting to do good. Fixing to water these and get all this fertilizer off the top of them down into the soil good. They're starting to come out over on the other side. You can see some of them there. The birds dug up a few of them, and I figured they would. So I planted those, especially on that side where it's open, I planted those a little bit tight, thinking that some of them wouldn't germinate or the birds would get some of them. And they did, but unfortunately they got them all right on one end. They didn't really space it out much, so I may have to end up pulling some of those just to give a little more spacing, but we'll see. There again, I'm fertilizing it real well. I'm going to mulch it in, hold the moisture, keep the fertilizer to it, and just see how much I can produce out of a small space, and see if it's worth it or if I need to space them out more next year. It's a learning thing, you know. I love to learn as much as anything, so we're going to learn together here. But here I've got all different types of things growing together. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, Got some watermelons and cantaloupes planted in there that are just, since it warmed up, I planted them from seed and they come up and the cold kept setting them back, and now the warmth is really starting to make them grow. Just in the last 2 or 3 days, they're really starting to produce. So these pepper plants right here are looking really good. Got some eggplants there, more squash, cucumber, more squash. If you don't know it, we like squash around here in Zucchini. There's another one of those. It's going to be a giant kale plant. Got to get some water on that. Little cantaloupe there that's just peeking out. Just all types of stuff mixed in, and it's gonna, when it starts filling in, guys, this is just going to be a sea of green, and it's going to overlap each other. And I'm fine with that. I kind of like that. I want it covering the ground, holding in moisture, and getting every bit of nutrition it can from the soil. And you know, hey, leave a comment if you think I'm wrong. We'll talk about it, because I'm not an expert. I just do what I think is best, and then I adjust from there. But you can see these tomato plants over here. They've been growing. They're not as good. They're not looking as good as the ones on the other side, but they're doing pretty good. But I put a good bit of fertilizer to these. I think they just needed a little boost. They're setting fruit. I've already got some small little tomatoes starting on there, and I'm gonna tie these stakes. I just got these bigger stakes for some of these last night. I'm gonna tie them off here short. But moving along, guys, and it's warming up. It's getting into the season now where stuff's gonna start doing like it's supposed to. And instead of just sitting here and looking at it every day, you're gonna start seeing a big change, big difference. So I'm gonna go hook this hose up and get started. Stick with me. It's a 100-foot hose. I'm watering with pure rainwater. All right. Now, is it blasting out? No. But do I want to blast my plants? No, I don't. I just want to get them some water. And rainwater is just so much better than town water, which has been chlorinated and all the chemicals added to it to make it quote unquote safe for us to drink. I mean, it's got what, chloride, and, just, I can't remember all the chemicals. I was reading about it the other day. But it has tons of chemicals in it. It's just not good for your garden. Rainwater's tremendously soft, which means, in gardening aspect, which means it soaks into the soil much, much better. It doesn't run off, it doesn't run through, it soaks in. It has so much more qualities. It holds nitrogen much better. It holds all the different chemicals as it falls through the air, all the different minerals that are in the air. It collects all those minerals and brings them back to the earth, deposits them back into the soil. You don't get that from your town spigot. So a little bit of work on the front end gives me way better results from rainwater than I would get any other way. In case you were wondering why I was going through all that effort. So I'm just going around watering in all of this fertilizer. Just trying to soak it into this soil underneath the plant, let the roots take it up. I bet these greens are really gonna benefit from, I know how much greens love nitrogen. They're probably gonna really benefit from this. Hopefully the bone meal will help the flowering plants set fruit much better, get greater foliage, bigger leaves, which is something I'm struggling with here in some of these plots with the organics that I put in there. They're not getting the minerals needed to really make big leaves, and I'm afraid when it starts getting time to set fruit, they're going to struggle with that. So that's a good reason for me to add this.